Matt Gaetz, American Conservative Union Chairman Matt Schlapp, and Civil Rights and Criminal Defense Attorney David Shevlin. All right, good evening, gentlemen. Congressman Gaetz, I'm going to start with you. Underlying all of this, and the reason we're here is because we're finally getting the opportunity to see some of the documents, some of the text messages, some of the emails. And yet here we are in the middle of the summer, and we still don't have all of those requested documents from the DOJ and the FBI. What makes you guys think that Strzok is going to tell you anything and not claim the fifth?
It's not the answers he gives, it's the ones he doesn't that seem to interest me the most. I'm particularly interested in Peter Strzok's interactions with Robert Mueller after Mueller found out about these text messages. And I think we'll learn a lot about the lack of curiosity that Mueller had in determining whether or not the bias of Peter Strzok, actually manifested in the official actions of the investigation. Now, Peter Strzok at one point was America's top spy catcher, so don't expect him to crawl into the fetal position and begin weeping. He will have his side of the story. I think largely he was dishonest and very opaque in his answers in his closed-door session.
Okay, and Matt Schlapp, I mean, one of the things that you've been talking about is the fact that the Republicans haven't seemed to learn to step up and stand up for the president and for the party at large, and just kind of live and let live.
I think we've really had a failure to understand. Republicans in Congress have had a failure to understand that oversight is one of the most critical things that they have to do constitutionally. They have the power of the purse. They fund these agencies. It's their job to make sure the money is being spent well. Judge, what we have seen with the abuses at the FBI make none of us happy, because all of us respect the FBI. We know we need the FBI. But it's because we respect the FBI, when we see this type of wrongdoing, we have to stand up and say enough. But as citizens, we're not empowered to do much. It's Congress that's empowered to do what needs to be done. And I tell you, the Republicans in Congress is a real moment for them. They have to demonstrate to the country this had nothing to do with our national security in Russia. It has everything to do with never-Trumpers embedded at the top spots of the FBI and trying to impact that election, saying they will stop Donald Trump. If that is not enough for Republicans in Congress to say that they will take all the appropriate steps to end it, and DOJ has to do the same.
They're not doing it. You know what? I'm tired of asking them to do it, to tell, finding out, when are you going to do it? When are you going to hold them in contempt? When are you going to? David Schoen. Now, you know the system better than anyone. All right. You say that when Strzok testified behind closed doors, there should have been some preconditions. What were they?
Absolutely. First of all, we know from the Inspector General that we don't have a whole set of Strzok or Page's emails. We should have all of those. Congress must demand that they be produced. Judicial Watch is on to those kinds of things. But it's not, again, it's not just Strzok. Remember, what we didn't see in that Inspector General report was anyone at any point ever telling Strzok or his colleagues that their conduct was inappropriate. What I really want to see them get to is this meeting that Strzok told the IG about, that he had with Page and with Andrew McCabe in McCabe's office, right, during which the agenda was Stop Trump. McCabe denies it, or he doesn't recall it. I want to get to the bottom of that.
So how do we get to the bottom of it?
Everybody's got amnesia.
David, how do we get to the bottom of it?
Well, first of all, remember, Strzok's attorney has been boasting that Strzok is dying to testify openly at Congress, that he will testify, that he's an unfair victim here. One thing we know for sure is that there is no good answer to the emails that Strzok wrote. He's going to have to eat those, and that sets the agenda. And remember, that infected the whole process. The IG found he can't determine whether bias infected the prosecutorial decisions. But remember, the prosecutor is only as good as the investigator. He or she makes his or her decisions on whether to prosecute based on the body of investigative material they're given. So people like Strzok decided what to go after, what not to go after, etc.
They're in an essential position. And Congressman Gaetz, the frustration that I have and the viewers have is that, there are some guys like you, Jim Jordan and Ron DeSantis and Trey Gowdy most of the time, but we're not seeing a lot of action here. What can we expect, as opposed to just saying bring him in?
Well, to my friend Matt Schlapp, I would point him to the comments of Rod Rosenstein on May 1st when he said that Congress has no constitutional role for oversight.
Yeah.
That's what we're fighting against.
That's
a Department of Justice that doesn't believe we have a right for oversight. It's outrageous. And frankly, it shows how important it is for the small group of us who've been really pounding the facts on this issue to get support from our leadership. You know how the Democrats will do oversight, Judge Janine? They'll say the damn documents will be there at 10 o'clock or your impeachment proceeding begins at 10:01. That's what we ought to do. We ought to demand the documents or we ought to begin impeachment proceedings.
Congressman Gaetz, it's the leadership. Are we talking about Paul Ryan? Are we talking about Goodlatte? Are we talking about Mitch McConnell? Let's name them, because this is what the viewers and what the American people want. You can come on and talk all you want for the next 30 minutes, the next 30 days. If the leadership doesn't let you do it, then you can't do it. Am I right or wrong, Congressman?
You're right. I have been in Congress for about 18 months, Judge Janine, and I haven't entirely figured out this place yet, but I know that nothing happens unless the leadership wants it to happen. I am proud of Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte for accelerating the schedule. I think we're going to have Comey and Lynch and Strzok and Page all giving public testimony very soon, and I'm encouraged by that. But from the Speaker's office on down, we need more support. Those of us who need the documents and who want to hold open hearings so the American people can see what happened.
All right, I'll go to Matt Schlapp. What kind of support is he talking about? I don't need someone's permission to ask for a document. We've got civil attorneys. We've got Tom Fitton who going to court and getting it on his own. Congress is that impotent?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. What the congressman just said is they can demand it, they can hold someone in contempt, and they can start impeachment proceedings. But the key is this, which is, at the end of the day, Judge, it's a political question. And the American people are watching. And if these congressmen, including Republicans, don't take these aggressive steps, they're going to throw people out of office. And there's a leadership race for the House to be the next speaker on the Republican side. Hopefully we hold on to that majority. I think these types of decisions will impact that race. And finally, the DOJ is going to have to prosecute. If they don't prosecute, then none of this meant anything.
Well, and I agree, David, don't you? I mean, it seems that, and I think at one point Trey Gowdy may have said something like that, you know, I'm more interested in finding out the truth than, you know, the criminal consequences. Well, I'm a prosecutor. I'm interested in criminal consequences. I'm interested in setting the record. I'm interested in making a precedent for this. If you are at the upper echelon of the chief law enforcement agency in the nation, and it seems the whole top echelon was going in one direction for Hillary against Trump, then I have to believe the whole culture of the FBI, other than the regular guys in the field offices, there's a problem.
Look, it clearly reflects the culture. Let me say this. My father was an FBI agent. I grew up an FBI groupie. This is a huge blemish on the FBI. But it is a culture, and it also infects the prosecutors. Let me tell you this, Judge. This is one of the worst cases in the FBI, but I have the worst case of FBI corruption in the Eastern District of New York. And you know who the prosecutor was on that case? Andrew Weissman, the right-hand man of Mueller. So it's a culture here.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be a left or right issue. The American people, that's what's disappointing here for someone not politically sophisticated. The American people should demand transparency. There's not an investigation in which a source would be busted here, a real national security consequence if we expose this information. Listen, the presiding judge of the FISA court, Judge Collier, told Congress that they should ask the Justice Department for the FISA application documents. Now, look, I think the judge also should exercise her supervisory capacity, given the wrongdoing we know with those applications, the misleading and the omissions.
All right, I'll tell you guys what it comes down to, and I'll go to you, Congressman, and we only have a few seconds left. It comes down to a prosecutor. I don't need to hear about this with all due respect to you, Congressman. I don't need to hear about this in an open session. I don't need to read all these emails. I need a real prosecutor to get in there and find out what the truth is and whether or not everything they said and did, which indicates a negative intent toward Trump, is acted upon. And Rod Rosenstein's not going to do it, and Jeff Sessions isn't going to do it. So is there justice, Congressman Gaetz, in the end?
I don't think there will be if Jeff Sessions remains the Attorney General, and it is a sad thing to have to admit that, Judge Janine, but we have demanded a special prosecutor to make precisely the decisions that you just outlined, and Jeff Sessions has proven to be very captive to the deep state actors at the Department of Justice that seem to have him very flummoxed.
All right, last words, Matt Schlapp.
I'm more hopeful. I actually think the American people are appalled at this, and I actually think there are thousands of prosecutors at DOJ, and I think they're going to demand that something be done. If nobody is sitting in jail after this all happens, there's going to be a political revolt like we haven't seen for a long time.
But there's no prosecutor who can do it without Rod Rosenstein, who convinced Jeff Sessions to recuse himself, who doesn't have the political will, I'll be polite tonight, doesn't have the political will to go in there and put